Coffee being a stimulant. But when you take coffee too long, it becomes a depressant. So if you take 1 cup, you're jacked up. You take 7 cups, you're depressed and tired. Pre-workouts is the same. How many times you've been sitting in a chair dead as hell on pre-workout, but your eyes are just wide open, right? So stimulants become depressants when you take too many. Yeah. It's the same thing with everything in the human body. It has a hormetic effect, a pro-adaption, meaning it has a positive force on the body, and then a maladaption, right? All things have that bell curve.
So are you saying then, if something like metformin helps autophagy, is it going to then thwart autophagy?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Damn.
Now
I'm telling you all the data.
This is the problem.
Okay.
I've spoke to many researchers, and a lot of the data is funded by the drug companies, and you're not seeing a lot of the negative data. There are case studies that you can search. I have a team. Listen, I'm a doer, so I'm in the practitioner field. So I'm less in the research field, but I have a team always looking at research, and we are scouring because you're going to find. I see it in real life in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of type 2 diabetics, which is why they're scrambling. Why do you think the sugars are getting even higher with people on metformin?
Well, I originally thought
triple stacking.
This is what I originally thought, and you tell me why. Tell me and the audience why it's wrong. My original thought was, well, if you eat really healthy and take metformin, it'll keep working. If you eat really shitty, like a standard American diet, McDonald's, black coffee in the morning with a donut, then it's going to stop working eventually. That was my first thought. Why is that not right? Tell everyone why you've come to your conclusion what you have.
So it's true that the more that you eat like junk, the more insulin insensitive you're going to become.
You can't overcome it anymore.
You can't overcome it anymore. But I know plenty of people that it's the reverse. What they're doing is they're taking metformin, they're not eating carbs.
Okay. So you think that's a important part there?
Absolutely.
So if you're not eating carbs, you're underfeeding yourself and using metformin here as a way to control your weight, maybe potentially. That's where you come into the problems. But you think if someone's eating a healthy diet, bringing carbs in, they might get a lot longer life out of a drug like metformin.
Okay. All the people that want to cite like calories in, calories out, just ignore all the obesity research showing that they have slower metabolisms. Physiologically, their metabolisms aren't working the way that they should be. And if you were to go to a type 2 diabetic clinic and see how hard it is for some of those people to lose weight that are starving themselves with carbs and on metformin, you would know what I'm saying is an absolute fact. It's the law of gravity. You are sticking your head in a hole and ignoring it. Again, calories matter. We're over that already. We get it. Yes. Okay. But this whole other area to just suggest it doesn't exist, you're ignoring that, and that's not right. It's a lie, and it's growing in more and more people all over, and we're not gonna realize it till it's like half of America.
So then, they're seeing this in the clinics. Yeah. So then, I assume that's why there was a resurgence in semaglutide. Right. One. Yes. Number two, what brought you back to using it?
There we go.
And what are some other benefits it has? Because I think the listeners need to know these things, because I'm sick of seeing on Instagram, well, it just doesn't make you eat. And I want to be like, well, it does this, it does this, it does this, but you just really have no idea and you're not opening your mind. So let's talk about some of those things.
Yeah, okay. Now, yes, of course, yes. For people that have overeating issues, we find that intermittent fasting is good for them. Why? Because it puts them into a window. Okay, there is plenty of overconsumers, but part of the reason that they're overconsuming a lot of times is because their insulin's too high, and insulin makes you hungry. Yeah. Okay. So so some of the challenge is hormonal and not just psychological, and sometimes you got to help these people. There's always a both physiologic and a psychological component. But it's important to understand that we've done now, in like, for example, our OID program, we've seen over 5,000 people. 80% of them, which is a very small portion of my company, we've used semaglutide. We tracked their calories to the letter for months before we ever had them touch semaglutide. And on the exact same number of calories, right, they begin to lose weight by having the semaglutide in there. So I know that it's not a calories in, calories out thing. Yeah. Okay. And definitely. I can prove it in data, right? Now, that being said, the mechanism's more important. We don't want to just say semaglutide whenever you feel like you're not losing weight. Correct. That's total bullshit. Yeah. And people that are having calorie issues, intake issues, I would highly suggest that they go to some other form of therapy first. I do suggest, going to a therapist, and then also working with someone who does maybe intermittent fasting or kind of works on some of that stuff. Because if you're not ready for that and you think you're gonna beat the system by just taking away your hunger hormone, you're actually just going to make the condition worse. And that's the problem, gentlemen, is that even though I am telling you right now that semaglutide is one of the greatest tools in the fight against autoimmune diseases, weight loss resistant, and healing people, like particularly women, it's going to go down in history as an evil drug
because it's been handed out like candy with no oversight.
Yeah, it's gonna fall to the way of HCG. Eventually, it's going to be taken from us. Now, hopefully, there will be other peptides, and the cat will be out of the bag, and we'll be able to do what we want. But it's going to fall the way of HCG, phentermine, and everything down the like. And it's really, really, really sad because if it happens too soon, you're going to cut off a whole lot of people that need it. And I'm afraid the pharmaceutical companies are going to figure it out and take it away like they did HCG for people that need HCG, not for weight loss, but for for gonadal purposes.
Why would they take it away if it's worth so much money? Because, I mean, you're talking it's going to be $100 billion industry by 2028, the weight loss industry. You have Costco partnering with Sesame to bring Wegovy in and offer weight loss programs featuring the GLP-1 drugs coming in their membership. How could that, why would pharma take that away?
That's because a massive growth in the field, in that industry, is coming from compounded pharmacies now. Because they're getting shortages and because trispeptide and some of the newer with the GIBs, with the GLIBs, which is compounded amounts. By the way, why do they keep having to make new ones? The body keeps adapting to what you do to it. So then you got to make another one that's stronger and another one that's stronger and another one that's stronger.
They could rotate metformin, semaglutide, GJ Max.
There you
Something
go.
along those
Exactly.
lines.
Yes, there you go. But they're also doing it because why? Because you get the new patent.
Sure.
Right? So pharmaceutical companies are losing. Every time you make a compound, you're sticking it to the pharmaceutical companies. They're not getting that money. So that's why they're going to want to cut that off and be the only source, and you guys pay the co-payment of $1,000 a piece to get access to it. That's what they're going to want to do, and they're going to shut it off. And I am very, very concerned about that because it has such a strong medicinal purpose that we don't want to see it go away. Now, let's get into that part of it. I think it's really important now.
I do too. I think it's really important. And before you start, I've known for a while how helpful this drug is. And Vince pointed me in the direction of it. And I've seen some crazy outcomes, and I'm sure you have too. But I think what's really important that could be saving grace is understanding some of these other medicinal pieces that I've seen other things it can do in autoimmunity where like they can't even find their ANA anymore and doctors are looking like, well, how's your rheumatoid arthritis gone? That's pretty powerful. So now with that segue.
So remember, I'm Mr. Functional and I'm over here talking to you about a peptide that is technically a medication.
Right.
Why the hell would I jump ship in a form like that? Why would I do that? Why would I
you
care?
Like to help heal people, so therefore you listen. So
Right.
you're going to be willing to take some of the evidence and possibly put it into play and go out there and see what really comes of it.
That's right. And I also know I'm the last stand. Like I'm the guy that you go to when everyone else has failed 20 times over. And if I can't fix it, there's nobody. So I'm looking at these people that keep coming back with these issues and they're trying everybody. You name it. Hyman, all the names. They've went everywhere and no one can help. And I'm looking at this issue and I'm remembering some of the data on autophagy that existed on these peptides.
And we've talked about autophagy for a few times. Can you explain what autophagy is, people?
Yeah. So I think what's important for people to understand is that the mechanism for fat metabolism is that when you do release leptin and you do burn fat, whether it's through fatty acid oxidation or through ketosis, is something called the AMPK pathway. So you think of your nuclear reactor, it only has 2 fuel cells. It can only take coal or natural gas. It can only take those 2. And when you're digesting protein and carbs and turning it into sugar, we're going to say that that's coal. But immediately when you don't have enough coal, you should immediately be able to switch to natural gas back and forth, back and forth. That's metabolic flexibility.
I like that analogy.
You should be able to go back and forth. Toot, 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 toot. It's like what the engines that we have that can do both ethanol
Hybrids.
or the hybrids where you run on electric or the gas, right? That's what your mitochondria, the most amazing energy system ever created, is sitting in your body doing all day long. But if that symphony gets off, then you stop being able to go into AMPK. So remember, like I said, if leptin isn't being heard, you can't start the fat metabolism process. So you get stuck in a sugar burning state. And that's why everyone should know that when you cut your calories and then all of a sudden all the swelling goes away and you start looking leaner and you start feeling better and your joints feel better, what's happening there is not, the caloric restriction is not technically taking away the inflammation. What's taking away the inflammation is autophagy. Because autophagy is what makes caloric restriction medicinal. And then what happens is when you have...
You can't even get into autophagy unless you have a restricted caloric intake, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can't... I mean, if you're in a surplus, you're not entering.
So it's way different. So like you can be fed and like when you work out, you go into autophagy when it works correctly.
Yeah.
If you're in ketosis does cause a little bit of AMPK drive, a little bit of autophagy. Every time you burn fat, you're in a little bit of autophagy. But deep autophagy, no. You need to induce some form of environmental restriction, whether it's time, carbs, protein, or calories.
Yeah.
Right? And that will then take you into a deep autophagy. But like your body, Jay, one of the reasons you're able to stay so amazingly lean, one is your work ethic and your discipline. I always want to honor that first. But your body has the amazing ability to go into autophagy even when it hasn't ate for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. And the thing is, the reason it'll stay that way is because you keep your body really well fed.
Yeah.
So because you keep your food so high, all of a sudden, if you drop down to 2,000 calories, you're in autophagy. But people who starve themselves all day, now they got to almost not eat for days to go into autophagy.
I got it. So it's distinction between a restriction rather than a true deficit. So like, if I'm at 3,500 and I come down to 2,500, that's a restriction. So then my body can get in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anytime that your body has to burn fuel that you're not eating, you get a touch of autophagy. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, due to hormone endocrine disruptors, right? Due to underfeeding, due to these different drugs, antibiotics, because what we learn is that akkermansia and the organic acid like butyrate are intrinsically involved in the bacteria that survive in your gut that release GLP. GLPs come from bacteria in your gut. There's the gut and metabolism again, boys. And it's undeniable at this point. They know that that's true. The science is in, right?
So that's probably why when you read about akkermansia, they say that it's attached to a lot of metabolic disease, because if you need that to release the GLP-1s, and I've found a lot of GI maps where they have zero akkermansia.
That's right. And you'll find that those people are having a hard time losing weight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. We're dropping bombs today, ladies and gentlemen. Strap in. We're not done. So I think it's important that we recognize that, and then as we go through the process of looking at semaglutide, now get rid of the fact that they're just losing weight because they're not eating. No. Calories could be the same, right? And bodybuilders, you can't deny this. My bodybuilding community, if you deny semaglutide and then you're over there celebrating your bodybuilders on stage that use insulin, you, my friend, are a hypocrite. Because really what you're doing is you're skipping the GLIB process. Insulin is the first GLP, gentlemen. Okay? And so when you take your 50 grams of carbs post-workout with your 2 IU of insulin, I'm not saying anybody here, but... But that's not for me. You say what you want.
It works.
It works. What are you doing? You expose yourself to the reserve energy, and then think of your body as a power plant. And as soon as the coal goes in, power runs through the cords, boom, shuttles right into the cell and gets used in the furnace, right?
Yep. And that's when I go train and get real big and round.
Dude,
Any blocks in that causes disease, but if you enhance it, it causes aesthetics.
dude, there's some truth to that though, man. Like when I was
course there
taking,
is.
so I was taking the insulin pre and post workout leg day only,
Yeah.
as I was going through my back injury, and literally the next day, if I skipped that, there was marked difference in what I was able to like how I felt.
Yeah.
So no, look at him. He's
That's why I had the tank on it. You get warm in here and you get into it and you're like, you got the lights on you.
get hot.
Yeah.
Serious.
All right,
So-
you're calling us a hypocrite. So.
No, that's right.
He's saying you're a
what our
hypocrite
friends are for.
if you then go and say you're a bitch for taking
Dude, I tried
Semaglutide
too.
I know
And
you did.
I tried it
Yeah.
for 6 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, after I've been competing since
You did just
2006.
10 units just to see what it would do.
Yeah, I did for 6 weeks. But after competing since 2006, this is 2023, I was hungry if I was eating 5,000 calories a day or starving. And I was starving if I was on 1,200. It didn't matter. And that was miserable to be. So I did it. Within 6 weeks, my shit was knocked out and I felt better. So I have no shame on that.
Autophagy clear too. I'm telling you,
Yep.
it's just like metformin clear.
I did it with keto, and that was a big thing that we did. We launched me into keto to re-get the mitochondria to kick, and there was a few things to
Yeah.
it. But he had me fasting, and I was doing 14 to 18 hour fast just back forth. That was enough to pull me. So
Yeah. So here's
Hunger signals were way off.
Wait, I'm about to drop another bomb.
Oh, shit.
Guess
Here
one of
we
the
go.
best ways to build muscle? Clean. Semaglutide, boys. I use it more for builds than I do cuts.
I told you I started playing with that back in the day and then I stopped because I was getting
I used it with Lantis.
No, you can just go straight to that. You wouldn't need
Like
You
my
would-
mind just went straight to like Lantis. That thing was.
Yeah. Right. But what I'm telling you is women who are hard gainers.
Oh wow, yeah, no.
Oh.
I know what you're talking
You guys
about.
want to start paying me yet or
No,
I'm kidding.
fuck no. I'm not paying
having
you
fun.
shit.
No, this is like I'm
but I
dropping
know what you're
bombs
talking
right
about,
now.
'cause, like, there's some gym pop clients I've seen before that no matter what you do with them, nothing changes.
And then, but here's the problem. So here's the problem. Nothing changes yet, and there's two reasons why. Okay. One is women, it just sucks. They have to train. Some women have to train so hard to gain. And they're just not ready for that. Like, and then to do that every day is going to make them puffy. I'm not even sure they're ready for it. The other problem is that even to get to the data, here's the part that cracks me up about the 1.2 grams per pound world is that if you load that amount of protein in someone who's a hard gainer, their sugars go high, but they don't pull it into the new muscles right away. So you just end up making them fat before you can build muscle. Have you noticed that? So you're like, oh, I can't get them to build. I'm just going to push more food.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think the answer might be to that?
Resensitized.
Yeah, you're not going to give them insulin. I wonder though, guys. I wonder sometimes if there's a medicinal way to do that. Yeah. But again, I digress.
What I was doing with semaglutide was, I
caught
lose my
that.
I lose my
I
sensitivity.
caught that.
I lose my sensitivity fast.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I can overshoot my food for 5 to 6 weeks, pull it back down a bit, reset with this,
Yes.
and then I can push hard 5 to 6 weeks again. So I can keep myself healthy without getting into
Feast
a
fast.
diabetic. Yeah, exactly.
Everything's feast fast.
So then you come out, you're sensitive as shit. And the first week after doing it, you're just like,
Yeah, it's like post show.
yeah,
The 3D
right. But you
effects.
keep repeating that every 5 to 6 weeks.
I wish I could get back to all of that.
I got into doing it, and then I didn't get to finish it because other things were going on in life. But it was a theory that I had, and I was like, this would work for me. I have not done it fully yet, but I've been thinking about it.
I almost want to just go shoot up right now and just start getting ready. Like
I'm telling you,
comeback
boys,
career for the
listen,
stage next
so
year is on.
I'm telling you right now, my medical team, my staff of like 12 dietitians, which is like my research team. I even have 2 people just doing research all day.
Actually, you are the only coaching brand that I know of that's doing some of that.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
As far as I know.
So if you guys are wrong, comment below if we're wrong on this.
Yeah.
You're the only one that I'm aware of that at the figures you're at with the company at 10 plus.
Yeah.
You know, your 10-figure or 8-figure company.
Yeah.
You're actually funding a research team. So you're really trying to understand how this
we're
goes.
focused on, so I'm not funding the universities to do the research. We are funding case studies to be done on large sample sizes and then collecting the information and then taking a look at what's working. I'm a clinical efficacy, oh my God. I'm a clinical evidence kind of guy, right? And the problem is I do want to bridge the gap. We had talked to USF a few times, but the problem is I need to be in the field doing the work. And it's very hard. Then you got to go find funding, or you're coughing up the money yourself. And you're usually doing it to then sell something else you own. And like, maybe one day when I get a little bit older and I've got more FU money, maybe I'll just sit back and pay for the things that I know I can prove. I know I could prove it if I spent time and just took out people who are weight loss resistant. If we took 10 weight loss resistant females, we would prove that it exists. But we just don't, it doesn't change anything. I need to be in the field doing and helping others do. And that's the problem. You don't have any doers in research.
Explain that.
So the people that focus on research are not the people in the field doing the work. So this is always the challenge. So like, for example, the people that work on diseases that see the biological variation that exists between each person that is not observed in large data randomized control trials is aware that even research that is, and this is, we should do another podcast on this, even research that has a really strong p-value with a really strong conclusion and a causal relationship is only going to be accurate for 50% of the people that are reading that research. So if you understand anything about bell curves, you understand that the median average of any data set, it's only really strongly relevant to 50% of people. Because if you've ever looked at it like a bell curve, think of like when it splits it down the middle, you have 25% of people to the median on the right and to the left. And then the other 25, fundamentally speaking, are further out from the bell curve. So even when research says that X, Y, and Z, they're actually only that accurate for about 50% of the people.
Got it.
Now, that's a really rough, if any statistician was listening to this or like, that's a rough way of explaining relevance to the material, right? And so I sometimes I get worried because when we talk about this kind of stuff and people don't realize that research is a good way forward, but it's not Bible, then you're really going to get confused by some of the conversations that we have. To finish up some stuff on the semaglutide thing though. So semaglutide then, because in AMPK, when I'm burning fat, I will then go find the fat cells because everything's lipid bilayers. All cells are a lipid bilayer. So that means I can eat cells when I'm burning fat. I can't eat cells when I'm burning sugar.
So you're burning sugar, you're stuck.
Yeah.
All these cells are climbing on top of each other. All these cells that don't hear hormones, they don't function, they don't burn right at the mitochondria.
Right.
So you can't get rid of them.
Right. So damaged mitochondria and damaged cells, which can happen from too high of sugar, but also can happen from too high of radical oxygen species. So too much stress, too much smoking.
Chemicals, some sort of chemicals.
That's the interesting thing about steroids.
Is that seed oils too in there?
Yeah, seed oils that are oxidized, right? All the things that everybody tries to scare the shit out of you about. That if your body just works the way that it's supposed to, autophagy, you can handle a little bit of all of that. So all of that stuff is only conditionally essential to people that are having metabolic issues.
Right.
Which is why, coming back to it, I want everyone to know right now, if your metabolism is slowing down or you cannot lose weight, I don't care if you're an ectomorphic female at 92 pounds or you're a dude at 300 pounds. It's a fucking problem. What did I just say disease is? It's metabolic. If your metabolism is slowing down, that's a key indicator that you're having energy issues. And if you're having energy issues and energy is getting stuck anywhere in the system, that's where disease forms. So if you want to know how healthy you are, don't look at your body. Check how fast your metabolism is. Usually.
Yeah.
You say, can we rabbit hole for a second?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Is this why we're going to say that maybe the cancer is climbing to 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and then the stuff you can't find about the 7-day fasting and cancer and reversing a few things there? Where do you feel that this is something that's could purposely...
All cancer cells were senescent first. Just remember that.
Yep. Wow. So do you think that this is something that people miss the boat on completely and they're looking in the wrong direction rather than looking at just like fasting? Because you see fasting being demonized. So I'm sitting here, I'm kind of like, all right, mate.
I don't want to... So
we want to save this for the OID one?
Semaglutide is a way of simulating fasting even when you're not fasting.
Okay, that's well said.
So is rapamycin, and we can talk about that later. But it's an interesting too. If you read about it,
of course,
it'll push.
That's why
it
we've
and
been
you're
using it for 3 years now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
I mean, you introduced it to me, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that comes to mind, that
actually a
statement
good
when
book
I read
here.
about Rapamycin.
There's
I
a
showed
few-
him that
The
book. I think.
Rapamycin, yeah.
Did you ever get it?
I picked it up
You
on
showed it to me.
Amazon and
Yeah.
showed it to him, and so yeah, it was a pretty good one.
So to finish up on some things on semaglutide is that if you are someone, what I want people to realize is that if you take too many fat burners, if you take too many steroids without cleaning your body out, if you take too much insulin, if you take too much caffeine, if you take too much work, you diet too often, you train too much. What happens is that your beta cells either start dying faster or they do not respond to releasing insulin because they're not getting the message from the GLPs, from your gut. So the microbiome gets off. One of the ways that happens is what you do is you undereat and eat the same fucking thing every single day. It's called a monotonous diet, which leads to monocolonization, which leads to the wrong bacteria not releasing GLP-1. Not to mention, because you diet too often, you've trained your body to do what? Live on glucagon, not insulin. If anyone is listening to this podcast, I am solving the mysteries of the metabolism right in front of your eyes right now. Everything that you ever thought, this is the answer. So what happens is you train your body when you are really stressed out and you're releasing adrenaline into your body in a fasted state. You are training your body just like metformin. Metformin teaches you to release sugar from the liver. Even though it's trying to shut it down, it will still, your body will adapt over it and it'll still release sugar from the liver because it pulls sugars down. So that's why you want to give it some sugar to pull down. So that's why you want to eat carbs with metformin. Now you can clean it in a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week. It's not a bad idea to do where you have no carbs and you throw it in there, but don't do that for long, right? Or pulse it. Because when you do it without carbs, you take it too far. Well, the same thing happens when you chronically diet, when you're under way too much stress and under too many stimulants. Because stimulus releases adrenaline. Adrenaline forces your body to release glucose from the liver, but it can't drop glucose. It drops what? Glycogen. Glycogen cannot convert and be used into glucose without what? Glucagon. Where does glucagon come from? We just did this. It's coming from the pancreas.
Yes.
So that's how stress, under eating, right, leads to high glucose levels, like you are type 2 diabetic, but your A1C is normal and your insulin's low fasted. I just solved it all. Right there. That's it. So that's why semaglutide is fucking breakthrough. Yeah. Because what it does, just so everyone understands, what it's making you do is release insulin when you eat food. That's it. That's what it's doing.
Which brings down glucagon.
Which brings down the glucagon, which then makes you release leptin, which makes you less hungry.
Wow, my book is finally here, Brittle to Unbreakable. It's an autobiography that cannot resist being a self-help book. It's my personal journey. It's to show you that life isn't this polished thing. It's really a story of triumph we all have, and it's really important to share those more as we get out there in the world. And I wanted to share mine with you all. Go to brittletounbreakable.com. It releases this month. If you guys are looking for anything else to do with the show, our sponsorships, new ethics formulations, AVH, if you guys want some coaching, I'm there for all that. Check me out, brittletounbreakable.com. Are you looking for a guy who can produce all your things that you want to produce to a level that just says, wow, this is unique, clean, and most of all represents my brand, my story? Be sure to check out Cinema 83, Logan Hyder. He is our go-to for everything we do with the Syndicate and After Dark, and he is very successful here in the Nashville area. Check him out for a consultation for anything to do with your videography or production needs.
Hey, my name's Jason Theobald, owner of Scooby Health, and then we also have a university under that, Scooby U. If you're really interested in some of the things we talked about today, go and check out our site, scoobyhealth.com. We got some education for you. We also can help you on your own journey. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Hey, I'm functional health coach Vince Pitstick, and if you love any of the information today and are starving for more, you can come check out my university, Metabolic Mentor University, or metabolicmentor.com, or you can join my apprenticeship. You can go to Vince_Pitstick is my Instagram, or check out Metabolic Mentor YouTube. Thanks.
Real quick.
Yes.
Now I got to ask this before we get down this further. Would that mean if I were to use a keto mojo, and I'm eating a meal, I should be able to see my ketones rise? That's measuring me burning fat as fuel. Correct. If I'm, see what the blood glucose. Would that
we
be?
talk
Would
about
that
that
be
for a
hack?
second?
Otherwise, how do you help?
So we have to talk about that a little bit. We have to talk about that a little bit. So fat metabolism cannot always be measured by ketosis. So your body burns fats two ways. It oxidizes them, and then through like things like acetylcholine A, which comes from like MCTs or whatever. So if you have enough acetylcholine A, it'll drive your body burning fats and then releasing ketones. Right. So it's not always, there's kind of like two pathways, like fatty acid oxidation and then that. So in the process of lipolysis, right? So you may oxidize but not release ketones, which I think is terrible because you're not getting the best parts of fat metabolism. You know, people when they're burning fat and they feel like shit, they're not releasing ketones. That's part of the problem. Right? So what I like to look at, because sometimes you're not, first I like to push a lot of acetylcholine A or MCTs to make sure that you're pushing it. Because if you over inundate the liver, it'll tend to force it into ketosis. Yeah. So, but you can give people the keto flu.
What if people get sick from taking the MCT?
Well, they can at first because they're switching over.
Yeah.
You got to introduce it slowly.
Okay.
Dabs.
All right.
Everyone can get tolerant. It's just time. Okay. So, but we are now doing our own case studies looking at GKI scores over ketone scores. So
you guys going glucose to ketone index?
Yes. Yeah, because that'll give you a better look at what's going on. Because people can burn ketones and still have high sugars. Now, usually what happens is sugars go down as ketones go up, but not always.
Right.
Not always, which is interesting. So we like to look at that GKI score.
What do you think about people? And I ask this just as my own thing. Me and Jay have talked about this. I've seen a phenomenon where I'll put some just gym pop people, can't get into ketosis, pull them out, give a couple weeks. Suddenly, the next time through, they go in, and their glucose to their GTI suddenly are off the charts. What is the reason for that? I feel like
it's the shock value.
But they didn't.
It's like getting in a sauna or getting in a cold plunge.
But it's almost like they did it first time. They don't notice anything. They're just like, nope, nothing, and like nothing happens. And I'm like, all right, put it back over to carbs a couple weeks.
Don't you think it's a diet variety? I mean,
no, diet variability.
Three
I get
things.
like that's like the whole thing. I'm just curious to see what you think.
We've been studying this closely.
Yeah, I figured you might be honest.
Three variables that dictate that.
Okay.
It's much easier to get a woman in ketosis in her follicular phase. Excuse me, luteal phase.
Okay.
Luteal phase.
Because she's more insulin resistant during that time.
Okay. Well, so the interesting thing is you're more, yes. Well, you're actually more insulin sensitive during your luteal phase. Or follicular, excuse me. This is the first 12. First days one, get past
luteal, you might be a little less because progesterone rises.
Progesterone's rising, you'd be more insulin resistant.
Yeah. Progesterone is actually what makes you insulin insensitive.
Correct. Yeah.
So
that's why luteal phase.
In progesterone, that's the problem with progesterone.
Yeah.
But like if you add progesterone, everyone's going to gain a little bit of swelling because you're less insulin sensitive, right? But that makes you like drop more insulin usually because glucose gets higher, and that's how then you use the insulin to make more fucking progesterone. Like that's why it does that. Does that make sense? Like that's part of why that happens. So you make adequate amounts of hormone, and that's why your body's very intentional about when it does that. That's why you only see it usually happening around menstruation and ovulation, right? So where you're at in your menstrual cycle is one. Two, has everything to do with how high of calories you were eating before you went in. How prolonged was your caloric deficit? So when you go try to get into ketosis, it's very important to recognize that your calories should be higher.
Yes.
Okay. You cannot get into ketosis when your calories are at 1,200 or 1,000 or 800. Okay.
100%.
You got to bring the calories up.
Yep.
Now, is that because of the stress that it's causing and we're just constantly dumping sugars, or is there a different reason for that?
Well, because the body will, if your calories are too low, it's either going to force neoglucogenesis or it's going to go oxidative. So you can't measure it. Okay. So you're burning, but you're not getting the benefits. Remember, if you're oxidizing fats without ketones, you are not protecting your muscles. The reason that
the
autophagy,
research was the protective mechanism.
yes, it's the protective mechanism. That's why people get all messed up when they're not paying close enough attention. If I'm in a deep deficit and I'm not making any ketones, Houston, we got a fucking problem because I've got nothing to protect my muscles. That's what people don't get. And when we watch women, I'm watching ketone levels even when they're eating carbs. And what I'll notice is in even my top athletes, they'll keep burning ketones, 0.2, 0.3, even when they're eating the carbs. But then when you start seeing metabolic problems, you don't see almost no ketones.
Right.
That's why we started looking at the GKI score, because it's a better index.
Funny story, not really. When I was at the Hybrid Health Summit and I knew my numbers weren't good, I was in front of my team and I was showing them how to use it. And we were talking about some of this stuff. And my ketone came back, it said LO. And I go, it's been saying 0.1, which ain't good. And they're like, well, LO's got to be worse. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Dude, you were such a hypochondriac that weekend. You were like, my ketones. I'm like, well, you were stressing over it. Ain't going to help you out. Burn all that.
I mean, I thought I was staying pretty calm, but I mean.
It was pretty funny, though.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, and then, so the third reason is your protein's too high, or of course, or you're so your protein or carbs are too high. So you're either getting uncounted carbs, maybe like sugar alcohols. Because kind of remember too, like if it messes with the beta cells or the alpha cells, even if it's not food,
you get into ketosis.
right? So we have to be a little careful with that. And then the last one, and the one that we don't realize, and this is the one that's important that nobody talks about, and that's why like the clinics that we work a process of getting your body. We train your body to burn ketones. Your body, if it's not done it in years or ever done it, it doesn't know how. It doesn't remember how to do it until it is forced to do it. Because we weren't doing it since childhood. Like, there are things that you have on your body. 40-year-old version was right. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yep.
It was right the whole time. And so what we have to recognize is that when I first apply this new stressor, it can have a pro-adaption, but it might not be fully effective or fully take, because it takes an acclimation period that if you have somebody that's particularly stress resistant or has sugars that are higher, it's going to be harder to get them there. We see it all the time.
So you don't think it has anything to do with cortisol being high from the low caloric intake? Well, and then that would be dumping norepinephrine causing.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if your sugars, remember, if calories are too low, that's where that comes into play.
Yeah.
Which I explained was numbered in the two.
I missed it then.
Yeah. So, but you're exactly right. And so I don't want to see that. And so we kind of really get people in a more of a relaxed state when we can, and we get to bring the calories.
Yeah, because I get this with my team when I'm educating them. We're looking at different sugars, and we use a Keto Mojo too, and they'll be like, oh, why aren't we just pulling them right into ketosis right away? And I'm like, well, they've been eating 1,100 calories. We're going to get their calories up higher. We're going to calm the body so they're not just dumping sugars, and then it'll work. And, they go, oh, yeah, I've tried that right away before. I've tried to put someone right into ketosis, and it didn't work. And I'm like, yeah, that's why.
And then the part
and we see this a lot with coaches, though, right? They try it right away.
The part that I cannot stand, the part that they have a hard time in research because they're not associating people what mechanism they're in. They're just lumping everybody that tries ketones together. If you look at any of the data on ketosis diets, in comparison to like higher protein or like higher carbohydrate diets, you have a greater degree of variance in the data. Meaning that when it was effective, it was really effective. And then when it wasn't at all. And that's because of this cellular mechanism, and they're not differentiating populations based on that. Because if you did, you'd find out that the people that hit deep ketosis got the best. I'm telling you, you'll hold your muscle and you'll burn a lot of fat, right? Like it really works. And then once they're keto adapted, the other part about the carb community that I don't appreciate, and what I've learned, because I was very judgmental, your performance in the gym will reduce in deep ketosis, but actually you can train just as hard and get better results in your body composition if you stay there. And then once you're acclimated and you're burning ketones, then you can train hard. Just like in a fasted state. If you're burning a significant amount of ketones, your muscles are protected. Now go ham. Let your body get adapted. Don't be an idiot and jump into your 7 days a week moving into keto, because you're not burning the ketones yet. You're going to be doing a lot of oxidation.
That's such a good point.
Right?
Amazing.
Let your body acclimate and then go ham.
I'm just gonna know what number he said that, because my clients always want to go right away, and I'm like, no, we're not in ketosis yet. Like, just give me a second.
Way
you
to
know?
serve up your muscle and just eat it with a spoon.
I gotta ask, just because I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on. Now I'm gonna bring this towards the close for the semaglutide. We're ready for it. If I'm putting together this puzzle, semaglutide, keto, fasting, is this where semaglutide could really, really shine? When after you work someone up and you get them in a good spot and you're trying to get them to go from a sugar burner to a fat burner, you use a semaglutide. Because the usual thing you have with people with keto is they don't like eating that way. Like a real keto diet. Not the ones where it's like I go to Chipotle and get all the meat and cheese I want. It's actually like a real one.
If you get people into a good GKI and you leave them there long enough, over time, they can eat high amounts of protein and still be in ketosis, just like an athlete male.
You can actually raise the protein every
Yeah,
time.
Benazati talks about in his book, like over time, you can start bringing that protein up, and that's what I do after a while. Yeah.
So do you think so if we're going to wrap all this up on semaglutide, because we like went all...
There's an ethics... There's a bottom line I want to get across as we get to
Yeah,
that.
that's why I wanted to kind of start going towards on that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like where you're laying, like this is a complete offense for people and they're seeing like a whole new world to it.
Because
Because
here's the deal.
Yeah.
Easy line, ethical line, ladies and gentlemen, ethical line. Anytime that anything works great, it will be abused, right? The internet's one of the greatest things on the planet, but the second largest thing it's used for is pornography, right? Does
on porn.
does that make internet bad? No. It means use it appropriately and it can be wonderful, right? So the same thing goes for semaglutide and anything like it, right? Semaglutide is an amazing tool. Stupid humans will do what stupid humans do and they will abuse it. But the problem is what we don't realize is that if I try to lose weight with a client, here's when I know something's wrong. When I go into a fasted state or or I'm tracking ketones and they don't drop while I'm dieting, or don't increase while I'm dieting, or blood sugars do not drop. And when I say sugars, not just fasted, we need to be checking 2-hour postprandial sugars. I developed a method for this. We call it glycation rhythm testing. It's so important that you check sugars 2 hours after they eat. I'm going to be honest with you on this podcast. I don't give a fuck about your fasted insulin or sugars. I don't care. I want to know how you metabolize food. And the only way to know how you're doing that is when you eat food, not when you haven't eaten for 8 to 10 hours. Although that's a nice number. I like it for a lot of other reasons. Don't get me wrong. But it's not the key marker. The key marker is 2 hours after you eat. Where did that energy go? Is it still sitting in your bloodstream, unstored or unused? We got a problem. I don't care if you look like a fitness athlete or you're 200 pounds overweight.
You want it to be back within 4 or 5 points to the base?
Well, my argument has always been is that your metabolic efficiency score is your blood sugars. Mm-hmm. Why at 15? Why at 15? Why at 15 years old? At 15 years old, you're in your 70s, right? Then as you get a little bit older, you're in your 80s. Why do we see 25-year-old fitness athletes in their 90s and the hundreds? Why are we seeing people with weight loss issues, hundreds, 110s, 120s? Why are we seeing this? No matter, you can debate with me what sugar level's bad or not. All I'm telling you is the higher that your average glucose gets sitting in your blood 2 hours after you eat is your metabolic efficiency score. Glucose is reserved energy. Nobody can deny that. And if your reserved energy starts getting higher and higher and higher, even though you're not at a pre-diabetic level, it still means what? You're becoming less metabolically efficient. Period. End of argument. Right? I don't care what anybody tells you.
So what do you like to see the 2 hour at though? We got to bring it back to a base, don't we?
Yeah, so at least if you are a very mesomorphic athletic male or female, you might sit a little bit higher because your body's always feeding those muscles with some sugar. Mm-hmm. So you might sit max low 90s. Optimally, I would love to see people that are like ectomorphic females sit high 70s, low 80s. The average individual optimally is like 85 and it coasts.
Beyond that.
And there's data that backs me up from Harvard research. Yeah. So all these people out there, by the way, that are telling you that like glucose spikes matter, or that it's bad for you, is full of shit. Glucose spikes are great. Now, if you're a type 2 diabetic, now they matter how high they go. That's where they're getting the research. But in normal human beings, you want a glucose spike. It's called growth factor.
Those 24-hour growth, like CGMs are great, but they're also a curse sometimes.
Right.
I'm like, those are normal to have those spikes.
I don't care what your sugar level is when it spikes at 1 hour. I want to know what it returns to at 2 hours. Because that tells me how well you took the energy in, broke it down, got it where it needed to go, and used it. Yeah. That's what matters. So don't get lost in what number we're looking at, because those CGMs give you too much information. And we learned from Google search and your symptoms at 2 a.m. that more information isn't necessarily better.
Hand up in my classroom for a minute. So semaglutide in people who are hypoglycemic response, the response you'll see after 2 hours later, they're like the 60s, 50s, plummeted. Semaglutide help those people?
Yes, because what comes before hypoglycemia is hyper. So in summation, people that when you try to reduce their calories and their sugars do not drop, and you've done it past 8 or 12 weeks, so you've given your body time to acclimate, those individuals need to start being assessed for metabolic disorders. And you may not see it. You might be catching it well before the labs will ever catch it or disease ever comes. Disease is coming for them. And in nutrition, you're just catching people way earlier in the process before medicine will see it. And so my argument is that at that time, you may want to send them either to like AVH, Jason's clinic, or my clinic, Vital Med. I don't care who, just get them in with one of our amazing team members, because you may find that if when you add this, you're going to start seeing sugars go down. You're going to start seeing all the inflammation go away, because they're not staying stuck in a sugar burning state. And as long as you diet correctly, right, support them with the right nutrients, make sure that they keep digestion going, because motility can get a little bit off. Yeah. So make sure that they keep going to the bathroom, and you use it correctly, and you can get away with really low doses for short periods of time. And you can come out of that and getting rid of all of that, and their metabolisms work better. Yeah. Now, if you leave them on it too long, suppress their calories too long, yeah, you're going to have some rebound. But the semaglutide isn't the problem. Modern dieting culture is the problem. And semaglutide is certainly a path to help people with autoimmune disorders, weight loss resistance, obesity, all of these people. And it's going to get marred in the history of just celebrity diet drug. And it's just so sad. So I want people to hear this. I want people to be wise. Don't let people manipulate you with just using keywords when they don't know what the hell they're talking about. This is what we've just told you is a complete and balanced answer on both sides of the argument.
Yeah, thanks for clearing up. I remember when we were talking about, all of us have gone through this, talk publicly about using keto, talk publicly about using autophagy, talk publicly about using semaglutide. Everybody forms these opinions. I'm like, whoa. We have a whole culture in our bodybuilding fitness community built on do a different workout every so often because your body gets adapted. I'm like, why the hell wouldn't you eat different food? Why that? Like when these things are talked about, I literally one of the things I've really tried to do in my 40s is to not attach myself to anything I see or hear or read or anything the first time. I want to just sit back and kind of just a little detached, suck it in and see what it is. Because I think if you 19 years here, I know 19, 20 plus, 19, 20, we're talking like 60 years of experience in this room. We've seen it all go down. And this is just another trend that I think is here in a good way if we let it, and this is going to be a pinnacle moment. And if we're always going to make it a marketing shtick, it's going to go away and fuck a lot of people who really need it. I agree with that.
Well, the problem I'm seeing too, because of the digestion stuff that can come with it, I'm seeing people who came to me, they were so inflamed and so messed up digestively, it made it worse, and they couldn't lose weight on it. Like they just couldn't lose weight on it. Yes. And so what we did was we got the inflammation down, got them fed up, got more diversity, the gut gets better. And then we went back in with it, and then they dropped like no other. I'm getting a lot of people.
That's functional medicine. That's functional nutrition that you're doing, and you're doing it right with efficacy and standards. You and I both deny more people semaglutide half the time than we do put people on it.
100%.
People come to me begging all the time, I heard you put someone on it, because they have a clinical reason. The mechanism of action is the actual indicated reason to take semaglutide. You are just some asshole who doesn't want to diet. Yeah. And I'm not, my legacy isn't going down for that. So I'm sorry. I'm not interested in that. Go down to the next dope dealer. Right. Because I ain't the one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Guys, is there anything else we want to wrap up on the semaglutide
Crushed it,
one?
guys.
No,
I
think there was a lot of gems, and to be honest with you, I'm probably going to go back and listen to that.
No, there was some.
Please go spread the message of the right information.
Yeah, no, and I think
every time Vince talks, I learned something. So thank you, sir.
Thanks,
and then that makes me go down a rabbit hole, which gets me better. So I appreciate that.
That's right.
We need to give a viral clip, though, real quick. So I think let's just go ahead and all say that semaglutide isn't as bad as you might hear it out to be, and give us a fair shot to hear it.
Yeah.
Because that's really the truth. Most people are tuned out of it right now. And I think that's unfortunate. So hopefully they take this. So Vince, Jason, myself, we all agree that semaglutide's a tool in the toolbox.
Tool in the toolbox.
Tool in the toolbox.
Yep.
Ciao. If you need
See
anything,
ya.
comment below. Peace.